Tons of WWE staff and personnel fired. WWE selling TV rights. What's going on with the sale? This is a loaded episode of The Ango Show. And on top of that, we're going to be talking about leaked WrestleMania plans, canceled plans, and we're going to talk a little bit about AEW. Trust me, you don't want to miss this. We're going to kick things off, and we're going to talk about AEW, more specifically Matt Hardy, who is due for a character change in AEW. And guess what, guys? They're already teasing this across Being the Elite. Now, this is really good news in my opinion, but I'm going to tell you guys my opinion after I read this quote. And trust me, you don't want to miss it because I think this is going to be a very controversial take, but we're going to talk about it. A few weeks ago on Being the Elite, people saw a broken Matt Hardy for a second. The mentality behind that clip was that in my mind, you see me being buddy-buddy with Ethan Page. I go in the mirror for a second. He had really threatened to fire Isaiah. He was really having a terrible attitude towards Isaiah, and you can tell that it hurt Matt Hardy when he went to the bathroom and he was on his own. So it was a little bit of a look into my mind and soul, kind of where I'm at. You can see that I was very frustrated having to go along with this with Ethan Page. That might help you read the story a little bit where I'm at in actuality. I was almost so frustrated with having to roll with Ethan Page's punches that you could see broken Matt Hardy was starting to appear. Not only am I old and beat up and 31 years deep and broken physically, I was also broken emotionally and mentally. So I think if you see broken Matt Hardy again, which I think there's a great opportunity you do, it's going to be for a very different reason, very different version. It's going to be much more based in reality and just a guy who's broken physically, mentally, and emotionally. And a lot of it has to do with Ethan Page. Wow, this is actually really huge. I was a really big fan of Broken Matt Hardy. I thought there was a lot of potential with it in AEW, and a lot of fans actually didn't like Broken Matt Hardy. Look, this is a new take on the Broken Matt Hardy character. Less supernatural stuff and more of the realism that is associated with the character that's broken down. And the best part is they're showing you in plain sight exactly how this story is unfolding. I have respected a lot of AEW storytelling in the last 7 weeks. I think this is actually a really unique situation. And you might be wondering, what would be the purpose of bringing back Broken Matt Hardy? Because I see a lot of people hate on this character, but ultimately, the reason why I love it is because it could be used in a situation where wins and losses don't necessarily matter. And two, it could be used in a situation to propel a future star in the company. See, the thing is, Matt Hardy may not be the biggest name in pro wrestling, but he is still a legend in the game of wrestling. And by having him go solo as Broken Matt Hardy, especially with a very realistic approach, that is going to benefit somebody very heavily. And I just want to throw it out there, Ethan Page is doing some very incredible work on AEW television. So here's what I say to that. I say do it. Use this as an opportunity for Matt Hardy and Ethan Page to have an extended feud. Use this as a way for Matt Hardy to get some wins, get some losses, but ultimately use this to put over somebody. And if I'm going to put over anybody in the company who could definitely utilize it, it would in fact be Ethan Page. This is something I definitely support and something I'm definitely excited about, and I can't wait to see the gimmick change happen. Guys, I want to turn our attention to WWE. We have some leaked WrestleMania plans, and yes, it involves Ronda Rousey, and it does involve Shayna Baszler. Now, this is actually really interesting stuff. This is stuff that, in my opinion, has been really special to WWE because WWE, in this moment in time, did not have Ronda Rousey involved with the Women's Championship, and they did not have her involved with the Royal Rumble. Now, the biggest complaint that I've had recently on this channel is WWE's booking of the Women's Tag Team Division. And WWE does, in fact, have to do something special with the Women's Tag Team Division. And it doesn't seem like Damage Control has any legitimate competitors. But now, this is where things change because WWE has something else in mind. WWE, according to the Wrestling Observer newsletter, WWE's plans are for Ronda Rousey and Shayna Baszler are to team up and challenge Io Sky and Dakota Kai for the women's tag team titles at WrestleMania. Now, this is good. You're going to get a women's tag team championship match at WrestleMania. It appears to me that Triple H is building this card around all the championship belts, which I think is fantastic. And, you know, it is technically heels versus heels in this situation. I do think if WWE really wants to build that women's tag team division, you got to have some notable names challenging for the titles. This is a really good way to do so. And I would actually very much support this idea for WWE to have Shayna Baszler and Ronda Rousey team up. The women's tag team titles don't really have much value these days. This could be the start of creating value With that being said, though, you have to think into the future. If I'm Triple H, I am preparing the next wave of tag team challengers. That way they can actually compete for these titles and it becomes somewhat of a focus. And it's really important that WWE gets this right, because if Damage Control loses the titles, then you have to decide exactly what happens to them. And that could be somewhat of an issue too, because there's a little bit of a lack of momentum there. Some things are good, some things aren't, and that kind of becomes an issue. I also really want to point out too, Shayna Baszler being involved in a high-profile match with Ronda Rousey for WrestleMania could actually lead to a lot of attention for WWE. Let's not forget that Ronda Rousey is a notable name in the world of pro wrestling, but she's also notable outside of it. And by having everybody involved in this match, a lot of people actually benefit from it. And this is one of those logical storytellings that could happen organically, just because of the fact that you have the newcomers versus the veterans. You have, the famous Ronda Rousey versus the NXT talent. There's a lot of things that you can do logically over this in terms of promos and storytelling. And the best part is you're going to see people in mainstream media cover this, and that is for the right reasons. Guys, I want to talk a little bit about Netflix and Amazon, because this is very interesting stuff. Nick Khan did in fact confirm that new potential buyers have expressed interest in WWE's U.S. media rights. And now there are more this time around than there were last time around. Now, last time around, we saw USA Network as part of NBC pick up WWE Raw and NXT. We also saw Fox pick up SmackDown. We also know that Hulu has a next day exclusive rights package with WWE. WWE's media rights deal coming up very soon. Now, the question is, if you are a company looking at spending billions of dollars for WWE's TV rights, are you just going to buy the company instead? Because that's a really big question here that I think a lot of people that are not really realizing. In reality, WWE is very much in a situation right now, as it stands, that Netflix, Amazon, Endeavor, NBC, Fox, Disney, right? Disney, Comcast. I mean, all of these different companies are potentially interested in buying the WWE. If you're a company who might be spending billions of dollars for Raw, SmackDown, NXT, are you going to be spending billions of dollars for the TV rights? Or at that point in time, are you going to actually spend money? And realistically, at that point, are you going to spend the money when you could just spend a little bit more and get the entire company? Now, I don't know too much about where WWE's evaluations are at, but one thing I do keep seeing online is that WWE's overall sale could be worth up to $10 to $11 billion. I don't know the exact number for WWE's TV packages and stuff like that, but I could see, Raw, SmackDown, NXT, if you bundle it together, it could definitely be worth like $5 or $6 billion. So this is a very interesting concept to put together. But if WWE does in fact, and this is something that you have to keep in mind, if WWE sells their TV rights deal to Netflix, but then it becomes the company gets sold to Disney, that could be a problem, right? And I think you could lose a lot of potential buyers by choosing to go with a TV partner who doesn't want to actually buy the company. So there's a lot of interesting scenarios here. I'm very intrigued to see what's happening, but obviously there is tons of interest in the WWE product, and it makes sense. They're making a shit ton of money, whether you like it or not, and that's just the reality. Guys, I want to talk about some canceled plans for WWE. We're talking about Finn Balor. Very interesting stuff. If you watch this channel, we had talked about the rumors of Edge versus Finn Balor, the Brood versus Demon. That was supposed to take place at WWE's Royal Rumble pay-per-view. It did not take place at the Royal Rumble pay-per-view, and it was canceled. And the idea for that was because Triple H, there was a couple things, but Triple H had nixed the idea because Edge wasn't necessarily due to being on TV, because he was filming a show for Disney+. Now, one of the things that has been confirmed, Meltzer actually wrote about this, though. He says that he says that the reason that the one-time talk about this match, it was canceled, was because of the Disney+ thing. So in my head, not only are multiple people saying it, but when WWE has to pivot their plans because somebody on their show is doing television somewhere else or doing a movie somewhere else, you got to understand that this is a big move for WWE. It's actually a good move because that means their superstars are busy and they are doing other things. And I think that is a really good idea for WWE. I also want to make it very clear in this situation that if WWE chooses to, they can always run this match back at WrestleMania. And I think that is something that we could very well see WWE do in the future. However, with that being said, WWE having a Hell in a Cell match with Demon Balor, Demon Brood at WrestleMania. Not only is it a big marquee match, but you got to remember it's not for a championship belt. So just keep that in mind. What happens after this feud definitely can impact things in terms of somebody's push or where they are headed next. And I think Finn Balor is definitely in due for a major push after this feud. So I would have Finn Balor go over. With that being said, guys, I want to turn our attention to our final story of the day. Vince McMahon, I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but the Wrestling Observer newsletter had reported that there are many more cuts at Titan Towers that are being done in preparation for a sale. There have been a lot more cuts on the corporate side in the past few weeks in different departments since the return of Vince McMahon. The belief is that these cuts are being made to lower costs and get the company ready for a sale. Matthew Drew, the senior vice president of international, was let go after he joined WWE in June 2021 following a successful stint at DAZN, and it was said to be a Nick Khan hire. This is a notable firing because of Khan's power in the company. This is really interesting, guys. Vince McMahon is not wasting time. He is cutting people's jobs. It's unfortunate, but that is just what WWE is doing. However, how does this go? How does this go down when it comes to talent? Vince McMahon literally, is he going to start releasing talent? This is a real question I have because we've obviously seen time and time again Triple H bring people back. Imagine losing your job and then getting your job back only for that old asshole to come back and fire you. I mean, I'm just saying it's a little bit disappointing to see that there's so many cuts happening. Do these cuts even really need to happen? Look at how successful WWE is. I get that this is a thing that happens in business, but it's really unfortunate. It's not something I definitely like. And, I just want to make it very clear, especially in this situation with WWE, you don't want to look like the bad guy when you're selling. So maybe firing people, even though it's kind of the norm or whatever when companies sell, maybe you just don't do that. I think either way you're going to sell. But that's just my opinion. What do I know? I've never built up a multi-billion-dollar wrestling company and sold it for billions of dollars. So anyways, I'm just giving you guys my personal opinion. And that's what we do on this channel, guys. So if you want more videos like this, don't forget to click that subscribe button. Seriously, you don't want to miss videos. Also, I'm doing a feedback survey on the channel on how to improve. So if you guys want to help me out, the link will be in the description down below.